Number three on our reasons to join the Green Party is that the Green Party has its roots in grassroots movements for civil rights, peace, and ecology. So, on a previous slide, we mentioned that the Green Party is not only a political party, it's also an activist organization. And this is partly why, because its roots come from these very activist people's movements for change. That a lot of change that has come in U.S. history has come either through independent movements pushing for it, independent political parties and candidates running and pushing for these ideas. But those candidates and parties are on top of, or are pushed along by people's movements that engage in, nonviolent direct action and, education and agitation work and building unions and things like this. All of these people's movements are really what drive a lot of change in the U.S. And in the 1960s in particular, 1950s, 60s, 70s, in that time period, there were a lot of changes for civil rights, for feminism and women's rights, we're seeing gender equality rights growing, environmental rights, as well as the peace movement, which was anti-war in general, but especially against nuclear weapons as a very existential threat to humanity, which is still something we're concerned about right now with everything going on, especially in the Ukraine right now, right? But all of these movements were, to varying degrees, successful in the 1960s at driving change. So as they began to drive change, the Democrats did what they usually do, which is they start to swoop in and co-opt and try to take over successful movements in order to stop leftist change, in order to maintain the system roughly speaking as it is now, to keep the capitalist and the ruling class in power. And so the Democrats, because of these movements, shifted their image to try to pretend to take on this more liberal progressive persona, even though their actual policies have not supported that for decades, right? So a lot of these activists from the 1960s who saw these movements create change and then saw it get co-opted by the Democrats said, we need our own home. We need our own place to keep up that independent struggle for change, because that's where the change has always come from. That's where it came from in the past, and that's where it needs to come from in the future. We need to reorganize that independent movement after it was co-opted by the Democrats. So a lot of these original founding members from these various different groups got together and started talking about forming a Green Party. I have an image here in the bottom right corner in C-SPAN. In 1991 is when the National Green Party was kind of officially launched, and it had a press conference that was covered on C-SPAN. And it's still really fascinating to see that press conference today, because even though that was 30 years ago, everything they talk about is exactly what we're still going through today. And it shouldn't be surprising, because we still have to build that independent movement in order to really challenge and change politics as usual, right? Because so many people have been, or movements have been co-opted into the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party has been complacent, right? They don't feel like they have to change anything, because you're just going to vote for them anyway, right? So we have to keep up this independent attitude here, and that's our roots in the Green Party, from all these activist movements. You can even see it in the four pillars, right? Civil rights, or social justice, right? Peace, ecology. Those are three of our four pillars. Mix in democracy, and then you've got our four pillars. So that's roughly speaking where it comes from. In the early 1980s is when the Green Party was originally founded. It actually started internationally first. New Zealand, I think, New Zealand and Australia were the first ones to actually run green candidates on a green platform. And they were so successful at getting elected on an environmental platform that other countries started trying their own green movements. The German Green Party was the first one to be very successful and get a bunch of people elected on a green platform, and then encouraged other countries to do so as well. We saw that in the U.S., where Green Party was founded in
84.
1984 was like the first conference for it, right? So
and 91 was when the Green Party became an official national political party.
Exactly. There you go. So it's a little bit of a complex thing. But at that original 1984 meeting, Howie Hawkins was there, but he was there to represent the Clamshell Alliance, which was one of one of these grassroots movements, right? Numerous movements were there, sent representatives there to discuss the possibility of forming a Green Party, and then, of course, it ended up happening. Go ahead, Chris.
I think that's a really interesting, point about our formation, right? As a party, as an organization, is that from the very start, it wasn't that the Greens from Illinois sent people to Minnesota to go to the first Green gathering, the first convention. It was that social movements sent representatives, right? So Howie was there as a representative of the Clamshell Alliance, which was an anti-nuclear organization in the Northeast that actually stopped nuclear plants from being built and really played a major role in the pause, that we kind of saw in the construction of nuclear, power plants in the United States in the latter half of the 20th century. So it wasn't just kind of inside baseball, right? It wasn't just people who'd been, considered themselves Greens and were inspired by, the German and Australian and New Zealand successes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was movements that wanted something more and wanted to come together, right? And this has happened a few times with things like the Labor Party, but all of those other organizations and entities have eventually been absorbed into the Democratic Party, and you now see nothing of them anymore, right? The Labor Party is dead; it's gone. There's still one in South Carolina. Then they deal with ballot access issues too, right? We have a very interesting formation, a very interesting history.
Yep. And so to kind of reemphasize that slide from earlier, we're a political party and an activist organization. And our history shows that because it was a representatives of various social movements that got together that decided to form a Green Party in the first place. And that initial Green Party structure was very focused on activism and education and organizing. And then as it became the party as we know it today in 2000, when it was officially formed as the Green Party of the United States, it did adopt more of an electoral stance, but we still have an activist kind of core in a lot of our platform and messaging and all that we admittingly do have to rebuild. But we are rebuilding it and we're working on it. That's part of what the Green Socialist Organizing Project is all about. So. Oh, there you go.